In the early centuries of the second millennium, when much of the world was still divided into small kingdoms and warring tribes, one name began to echo across the mountains of Central Asia and into the fertile plains of northern India. Mahmud of Ghazni. To some, he was a warrior of faith. To others, an ambitious conqueror driven by wealth and power. But whatever one's view, there is no denying that Mahmud's 17 raids into India changed the course of history. They shaped the boundaries of kingdoms, the flow of trade, and even the imagination of future empires. His story is not simply about war. It is about the meeting of two worlds. Mahmud was born in the year 971 CE in the city of Ghazni, located in present-day Afghanistan. His father, Sabuktigin, was a Turkic soldier who had risen from slavery to kingship under the Samanids. The young Mahmud grew up in a court where Persian culture, Islamic scholarship, and military discipline coexisted. From his earliest years, he was exposed to both the sword and the pen. The poets of Persia sang of glory and conquest, while his father taught him the discipline of leadership. Mahmud learned quickly that power came not just from courage on the battlefield, but from vision and administration. When Sabuktigin died in 997, Mahmud ascended the throne of Ghazni. He was still young, but already known for his intelligence and ambition. Within a few years, he transformed his small kingdom into one of the most powerful empires in the Islamic world. His court became a center of art, learning, and poetry. Scholars like al-Biruni and poets like Ferdowsi found patronage under him. Ghazni's mosques glittered with marble and gold, and its libraries held thousands of manuscripts. But even as his city thrived, Mahmud's eyes turned toward the southeast, toward the rich and ancient lands of India. India, at the turn of the 11th century, was a mosaic of kingdoms, powerful, prosperous, but divided. The great Gupta Empire had fallen centuries earlier, and no single ruler commanded all of northern India. Instead, smaller Rajput states like Kanauji, Delhi, and Ajmer stood in rivalry. To Mahmud, this presented both an opportunity and a temptation. India was famed for its immense wealth, its temples filled with gold and jewels, its markets overflowing with spices and textiles. For a ruler building an empire, such riches could finance armies, fortresses, and great monuments. Yet Mahmud's motives were not purely material. As a ruler of a rising Islamic power, he also saw himself as a champion of the faith, expanding its boundaries into lands where it had not yet reached. And so began one of the most dramatic series of military campaigns in medieval history. 17 expeditions that carried Mahmud's banners deep into the heart of the Indian subcontinent. His first raid came in the year 1000 CE, when he struck the frontier towns of the Punjab, still under the control of local Hindu rajas who had once served the Samanids. These were not large-scale invasions, but probing attacks, meant to test the strength of India's defenses and open paths for future campaigns. Over the next few years, he conquered the strongholds of Peshawar and Multan, bringing the northwestern frontier firmly under his control. Each campaign grew larger and bolder. In 1008, he faced one of his greatest challenges, the powerful confederation of Rajput kings led by Anandapala of the Hindu Shahi dynasty. The two armies met near Peshawar in a battle that would decide the fate of the Punjab. Contemporary accounts describe the scene vividly. The dust rising from thousands of war elephants, the clash of steel and arrows, the roar of warriors shouting their battle cries. For a moment, the outcome seemed uncertain, but Mahmud's disciplined cavalry and use of tactics eventually turned the tide. Anandapala's army broke, and the Rajput alliance crumbled. With this victory, Mahmud secured his control over the entire region west of the Indus River. After that, his raids began to move deeper into India, not to conquer and settle, but to plunder and withdraw, a pattern that would mark most of his 17 expeditions. Cities like Mathura, Kanauji, and Thanisar, all centers of wealth and religion, fell to his forces. Temples were looted, treasuries emptied, and caravans of gold, silver, and precious stones carried back to Ghazni. In the Islamic chronicles, these campaigns were described as holy wars, jihad against the idolaters. In Indian memory, they were invasions that brought both destruction and fear. The truth, perhaps, lies somewhere in between. Mahmud was not content with easy victories. He sought fame and recognition across the world of Islam. His conquests were celebrated in Baghdad and Bukhara. The caliph in Baghdad sent him robes of honor, acknowledging him as the Sultan of the East. Ghazni became a symbol of both power and piety, its wealth drawn from India, its culture polished by Persia. Among all his campaigns, one stands out more than any other: his raid on the temple city of Somnath in Gujarat in 1025 CE. It was his 17th and most famous expedition, the one that made his name immortal in both history and legend. Somnath was not just a wealthy temple. It was one of the holiest shrines of Hinduism, dedicated to Lord Shiva. The journey to reach it was long and perilous. Mahmud and his army crossed the harsh deserts of Sindh and Rajasthan, enduring thirst, heat, and resistance from local rulers. When he finally reached Somnath, the defenders fought fiercely. The battle lasted for days. Contemporary Muslim historians describe the confrontation in vivid detail. The great temple's doors barricaded, its courtyards filled with warriors, its priests praying as arrows rained down. When the walls fell, Mahmud entered the sanctum where the famous idol of Somnath stood. What happened next would echo through centuries. Mahmud ordered the idol to be struck down, and its fragments were sent to Ghazni, where they were placed on the steps of his mosque as a symbol of victory. But beyond the legend lies a more complex reality. Many historians believe that Mahmud's motives at Somnath were as much economic as religious. The temple's treasury was said to hold immense wealth: gold, silver, pearls, and gems accumulated over centuries of devotion. For Mahmud, this was the prize that would fund his empire's future. The loot from Somnath was so vast that it transformed Ghazni into one of the richest cities in the world. Its palaces glittered, its mosques shone, and its scholars thrived on royal patronage. Yet Mahmud did not attempt to rule over India permanently. He came, conquered, looted, and returned. His empire's heart remained in Afghanistan, not in the Indian plains. His raids weakened some Indian kingdoms, but they did not destroy India's capacity for recovery. The Rajputs continued to rule in Rajasthan, the Cholas flourished in the south, and new powers emerged in Bengal and the Deccan. Still, his campaigns opened the gates of the subcontinent to future invasions. The road from the northwest, through the Khyber Pass and the Indus Valley, would become the main highway for later conquerors, from Muhammad Ghori to Babur. For Mahmud himself, the rewards were immense. He ruled for more than 3 decades, expanding his dominion from the Caspian Sea to the borders of India. His court at Ghazni became a beacon of Persian culture, where poets and scientists worked under his patronage. Al-Biruni, the great scholar, was among those who accompanied him on his Indian campaigns, studying the land and its people with fascination. It was under Mahmud's rule that Al-Biruni would later write his famous Kitab al-Hind, a study that still shapes our understanding of early medieval India. Mahmud died in 1030 CE, leaving behind a legacy as complex as his life. To the Islamic world, he was a hero, a warrior who had carried the banner of Islam to the edge of the known world. To many in India, he was a destroyer, a man whose raids left cities in ruins and temples desecrated. But beyond these judgments lies a deeper truth. Mahmud was also a man of his time, driven by the same forces that drove kings everywhere: ambition, power, wealth, and the desire for immortality. His 17 raids were not simply acts of religious zeal, they were part of a calculated strategy to build a state that could sustain itself through wealth and prestige. By targeting India's richest cities and temples, he ensured the prosperity of Ghazni for generations. His empire would eventually fall, but his name would endure, remembered in chronicles, poems, and legends across 2 continents. When we look at Mahmud's life, we see not only conquest, but contradiction. He patronized scholars and poets, even as he waged wars. He built mosques and libraries with the wealth taken from temples. He saw himself as a servant of God, yet he pursued glory with an almost unending hunger. He lived at the intersection of faith and ambition, a symbol of both the heights and the limits of power. And what of India, the land he invaded 17 times? In many ways, India survived Mahmud. Its temples were rebuilt, its kingdoms reorganized, its people continued their lives. Yet his raids left a mark, not just physical, but psychological. They reminded Indian rulers of the vulnerability of the northwestern frontier, of the need for unity against foreign invasions. But such unity remained elusive. The Rajput clans continued to fight among themselves, and within a century, another conqueror, Mahmud of Ghazni, would walk the same path Mahmud had opened, this time to stay and rule. If we were to stand today in the ruins of Ghazni, we might imagine the echoes of that long ago world, the clatter of horses, the recitation of Persian verse, the call of muezzins from marble minarets, and the distant memory of caravans returning from India, laden with treasure and tales. Time has erased much of Mahmud's empire, but not his legend. His image endures, sometimes as a saintly warrior, sometimes as a ruthless invader, but always as a man who reshaped the history of 2 lands. And perhaps that is the power of history, that a single ruler's ambitions 1,000 years ago can still provoke debate, reflection, and fascination today. So when we think of Mahmud of Ghazni and his 17 raids on India, we must ask ourselves, what truly drives human conquest? Is it faith, ambition, or the thirst for glory? Can a ruler who builds a city of learning and art also be remembered as a destroyer? And how should we remember such figures, as heroes, villains, or simply as mirrors of their time? Because in the end, Mahmud's story is not only about gold and temples, but about the endless human desire to leave a mark on the world, a desire that transcends centuries, nations, and beliefs.